don't know about you, but I would not want to sign with a California-based team, just knowing all the income tax I'd have to give away with how that state runs their operations out there. However, you'd gladly pay the tax right now if you are a Dodger fan because of what Andy Pages has done to start the year. Entering last night here, Mark, we like to just kind of look at some different analytics. It gives you a better idea of where some players are. And through the first 2+ weeks of the season, you're looking at not only Andy Pages in offensive wins above replacement as the leader of Major League Baseball, but Jordan Walker, again, one of the top prospects for years here for the St. Louis Cardinals, your league leader in home runs right now. Both of them 1.3 wins above replacement for position players. Yordan Alvarez off to a great start with the Houston Astros. They got a much-needed win last night over the Colorado Rockies. On the pitching side, guy you see plenty in his rotation mate. How about Cam Schlittler? 1.3 pitching wins above replacement, and then a host of guys behind him at about 0.9. That includes Cam Schlittler's rotation mate in the ace lefty Max Fried. We heard from Jonathan Von Tobel this morning. Jose Soriano of his LA Angels is off to a fantastic start. But maybe two names, and unfortunately one that just went on the injury list, and Nick Pivetta with the Padres. But Taj Bradley of the AL Central American League leading Minnesota Twins. Come on down, Taj Bradley. Your table is ready. What do we make of some of these guys getting the early tax benefits of the starts to their season?
Yeah, first and foremost, there's nothing good about tax day. But happy, yes. I mean, it is terrible. No matter, unless you're in Florida or Texas, then tax day doesn't bother you. But anyway, you look at it, Andy Pages, it's just an embarrassment of riches when you look at the Los Angeles Dodgers. Even dealing with Mookie Betts' injury, they've got Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Max Muncy, up and down. And there's Andy Pages getting off to the start that he's gotten off to. It's just ridiculous what Los Angeles is able to do. Development of players, and Pages has obviously flown under the radar given the star power that is out there in Los Angeles, but he has been ridiculously good this year. Listen, the Yankee starting rotation is going to be something that powers their way through. Cam Schlittler last year was one of these, diamonds in the rough, a guy that was a big-time player, big-time pitcher down in the minor leagues, came up, velocity, competitive in the strike zone, challenges hitters, moves the ball up and down in that strike zone. Jensen, you know that better than anybody else. And he has been really, really good. Not as good in his last start as the Yankees have struggled a little bit over the last week or so, especially in that series down in Tampa against the Rays. But you expect that kind of brilliance from Fried. If you look at the Yankees and you were bullish on them in the American League East, you knew what the strength of the team was going to be, which was going to be that starting rotation. And Schlittler was one of the reasons why, especially early before they get some of their reinforcements back, one of them being Carlos Rodon, and the other one probably a little bit later on after that being Garrett Cole, coming off Tommy John surgery from about 13, 14 months ago.
Angels, Yankees back at it again from the stadium. Jack Kahanowitz against Luis Heel. Already an official play in pocket for me. I'm going to play the over 10. Still cannot believe that the over did not get there last night. We needed just another run to be able to get ourselves home there, but could be yet again some conditions at the Bronx tonight. You're looking for straight out to left center field, 83 degrees at first pitch. So you could see some more homers. I don't know if we get back to start the game as the Angels did with Trout, Joe Adele, and getting it off of Ryan Weathers. That was pretty remarkable. And the ball that Jorge Soler hit might still be going. If Artemis 2 hadn't splashed down yet, that one might be a heat-seeking missile to be able to take it down. That's for sure. Okay, well, the bad part about tax day, you got to pay. The good part, hopefully most of you are getting a refund. Now, there are some major league teams who would love a refund to the start of their season because of the significant key injuries, and they have piled up in earnest already, Mark. So just some of the position player ones that have really made an impact significantly on some of the clubs. I'll just kind of went in alphabetical order here for a few of the guys, but Brent Rooker just sustained the oblique injury with the Athletics. Jeremy Peña, who was so critical for the Astros, not only atop their lineup, but also in the middle of the diamond, strained hamstring for him. Royce Lewis, God, it feels like every single year. It's some sort of thing. It's unfortunate because when he's right, boy, what a boost that would have been. And the Twins are off to a great start too. So a sprained knee for Royce Lewis. The Blue Jays, doesn't matter what side of the ball. Pitching, Hitting, it has been awful. But on the hitting side, losing Alejandro Kirk behind the plate for some time with that thumb surgery. George Springer now at the fractured toe. You mentioned Mookie Betts earlier. This series between the Mets and the Dodgers, nowhere near fully healthy, of course, with Juan Soto and the strained calf. And then we mentioned at the top of the program, for people just joining us, it's going to be about a month now for Christian Yelich and the strained groin there. The Brewers, losers of 6 in a row. They are reeling right now with one of their offensive stalwarts sidelined for some significant time. Any of those guys that really jump out? Obviously, the easy ones are Betts and Soto, but one that you think the team is really going to struggle with their losses.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk and Springer. I mean, you look at the Blue Jays, and listen, it's a long season. There's no question about it. But when you're thinking about thumb surgery for Alejandro Kirk, and then obviously the fractured toe for George Springer, coming off what could have easily been a World Series championship a year ago against the Los Angeles Dodgers, disappointing. They're 7-9 to begin the season. You know, you look at some of these injuries, can they withstand them? And what you're seeing here from the Mets without Soto, they cannot. Offensively, they cannot, right? They've been unbelievably stagnant since Soto suffered the injury that he did to his calf. And he's going to be out another probably week and a half before potentially he does return. When you look at Yelich and Milwaukee, they're struggling. Now you take Yelich out of that lineup. What's the impact going to be? As we hinted upon it on Monday, and then the news came out, he's going to be out a significant portion of time. For the Dodgers, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the thing. Like, and not trying to disrespect Mookie Betts. He's a wonderful player, but it just, they withstand everything. It really does not matter what kind of injury, unless it's 4 or 5 guys that go down to injury. Even with that being said, we've seen them win playoff games with bullpen games. So it does not matter when you look at the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're able to withstand some things. I think the thing that you keep note of when you look at some of these injuries, key ones early on, is you're playing the long game, but the impact and what you don't want to have your team is bury itself early on in the season if you've got futures on them, whether potentially to be a playoff team, to win their division, respectively, like that.
Yeah, I would say obliques, groins, and calves, it is so difficult to get back to 100% during a season, and even the residual effects, especially for position players where you're moving and shaking every single movement you have on the diamond. Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that. The other part of tax day, you get to file some early returns. You get to pay some estimated tax, but maybe some ROI chances. Maybe you come into a little bit of a windfall. And perhaps that could be in earnest when you're looking at some potential MLB futures to add to your portfolio. I mentioned the Minnesota Twins earlier. The most wins right now in the American League. They sit atop the American League Central. Is it worth adding the Twins at plus 750 to win the division? Maybe. We'll see if there's staying power there. But it's the other two here that I want to highlight. The Pirates off to a great start. They are tied for first in the National League Central. And then we also hit upon the Atlanta Braves. Another comeback win for them over the second place Miami Marlins. They are out way ahead of the New York Mets, too, and putting pressure on one of the contenders there. The Pirates to win the NL Central, plus 270, might be a nice little value grab, but the Pirates to win the National League at 20-1. They find their way in. That is certainly not a pitching staff you want to face. And the same could be true for the Braves to win the National League East at plus $1.70, but to win the World Series at 18-1 might be advantageous. Of those futures, any that you'd really like to jump in pocket with, Mark?
Braves to win the East, the shortest one on the board at plus 170. I think that's for a team that had a down season a year ago. Atlanta's gotten back into the saddle this year, so I think that's the most intriguing one. You know, I'd love to. I think it's intriguing when you look at the two central odds. When you look at the Twins at being plus 750, there's belief in the Pirates at plus 270 when you think about it. I mean, you know, coming into the year, you thought maybe that number would be a little bit longer than it is. It shows you that. In terms of the futures go, I would never touch the Pirates to win the National League and get themselves to the World Series at 20-1. Maybe for beer and pizza money. But the Braves to win the World Series is an interesting one at 18-1. The issue you have is, for anybody in the National League, is eventually, unless something strange happens, you have to get through Los Angeles.
Yep, we'll find out. That Braves game against Miami, Chris Paddock against Bryce Elder, that might be a portfolio add today there for the Daily Diamond.